Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Press Play Action. Mitchell Lee alongside my good friend Brandon Tew, and today we're going to party like it's 1999 because we are going to review The Sixth Sense and American Beauty. Now, Brandon, you asked me a question about 20 seconds before we started recording here. You said, very interesting pairing of movies, but I don't know why you paired these two together. And that just shows me that you don't listen to me at the end of the podcast whenever I tell you what's coming up next and kind of why I paired those movies together. So shame on
Oh,
you,
I know.
Brandon.
I know
You don't
now. My
listen.
fault. Yeah,
But
no, go ahead. Tell
the
the
reason
audience.
why I paired these movies together is because a few podcasts ago, we talked about the Shawshank Redemption and we talked about The Green Mile, which
Yeah.
was a Best Picture nominated movie in 1999. And we did in 1994 with Shawshank Redemption. We talked about Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump and talked about what should have won the Oscar that year, reviewed those movies. And even though we disagreed with the Forrest Gump decision, we both did enjoy that movie and talked about why we liked it and also why we thought it shouldn't have won Best Picture. And so we're going to do the exact same thing. Maybe we agree with the Academy's decision. Maybe we didn't. With 1999, because The Green Mile was nominated for Best Picture, The Sixth Sense was nominated for Best Picture, and American Beauty was nominated and won Best Picture. But also, Brandon, we are working our way through the IMDb Top 250. That's why we started at Shawshank. We've had these different pairings. Green Mile was at 27 on the IMDb Top 250. And the reason why I picked those other two movies is because American Beauty's at 72 and The Sixth Sense
Well
is at
done.
145.
That's nice.
So the other two
That's
movies,
good.
The Cider House Rules, which I've literally never heard a human being talk about in my life. It is on the list, but
Yeah,
who
I mean,
knows
I've
when we'll
heard of the
get to it.
movie, but no one's ever talks about that movie. Yeah, I
And then
agree
the
with you
other
on that one.
one is The Insider, which I have heard really good things about, directed by
Yeah,
Michael Mann, who made
that's
Heat
like
and
the
Collateral.
journalist one, right?
It's the one
Am I?
about, I want to say, like Big Tobacco and someone kind of
Yeah.
whistleblowing Big Tobacco and what happened with that. Um, Russell
I've heard
Crowe.
really good things about it. Yeah,
I
I've heard
have
really good
too.
things about it.
But given the fact that we are kind of charging down the IMDb Top 250 in an unorthodox way, but we're still doing it. American Beauty, The Sixth Sense, and given the fact that the winner is on that top 250, we're going to have kind of that same reevaluation that we did of 1994. And just like 1994, 1999 is considered to be an all-time great year for movies, Brandon. We've got stuff like, we've already talked about The Green Mile, but Fight Club, The Matrix, The Iron Giant, Toy Story
Mm,
2, all sorts of
mm.
great stuff. I mean, I wouldn't include Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, but that certainly
It's on
every
IMDb Top 250.
oh hell no. But it's
Oh, okay.
certainly a movie that made its presence felt in 1999. It was a cultural
Yeah,
phenomenon, but you also
yeah.
have
I mean,
Being John Malkovich, Galaxy Quest, Big Daddy, Blair Witch Project, American
oh my
Pie,
gosh,
The Talented Mr. Ripley, Any Given Sunday, Eyes Wide
good
Shut.
sports movie. Yeah, yeah.
So, I
No,
mean,
these are good movies.
Election,
I will
Office
say
Space.
we'll get into Blair Witch. I mean, that might be like the turning point for horror, where people were like, "Wait, we can make horror films like this,"
You
and
don't
they
have
were like,
Paranormal
"Yeah,
Activity without the Blair Witch Project.
right,
And terrible 2010s for horror at the beginning where you had just a bunch of found footage crap coming out. But
yeah."
we
They're
will
trying to make it up.
exactly, yeah, because it's cheap to make. But we will get to that when that time comes. Brandon, we're going to go ahead and dive right in, starting with The Sixth Sense. This one was directed by M. Night Shyamalan. He did have another movie that came out beforehand, but it was a very small indie
Our
type
guy,
thing. This
yeah,
was
our guy,
this. Did you just say our guy?
yeah. I'm not. We love him, right? I'm making a complete joke.
Well, we've loved M. Night Shyamalan. There are some movies of his that I do love. When we get to
Same, yeah.
when we get to Unbreakable, you'll hear me gush about M. Night Shyamalan. But when we get to movies like The Happening or The Last Airbender or After Earth or Lady in the Water or Old or Glass, you're gonna hear me talk my shit because I'm not a big M. Night Shyamalan fan with those movies. He's very hit or miss, and his misses tend to be a little bit more frequent than his hits. And when he misses hard.
Right. He tries. Yeah, he goes for it like
But
real hard.
the reason why he became this big name that's been working for so long and despite all these misses still gets a lot of opportunities is because of something like The Sixth Sense, which was just
Hmm.
this huge thing in 1999, released in August of 1999, written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, starring Bruce Willis, Tony Collette, Olivia Williams, and Haley Joel Osment. And this was the second highest grossing movie of 1999 behind Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, of course.
That
This
makes a lot of
made
sense.
$293 million domestically, 672 worldwide off a $40 million budget. So after this movie, everyone was lining up to work with M. Night Shyamalan, and he kind of became a big name because, and we'll get to the spoiler discussion after this, but everyone was talking about the twist and talking about this great child performance by Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah.
But this is
No, I'm with you.
a psychological thriller about a child psychologist who's played by Bruce Willis, and he's working with Haley Joel Osment, who plays Cole. And this kid claims that the famous quote, "I see dead people," and they're just walking around, and I can see them. And it's
Right.
about Bruce Willis trying to help this kid out, and this kid trying to feel a little bit more normal, and also his mom and the struggles that she has trying to connect to her kid as a single mother with a kid that's going through going through some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Not the best childhood upbringing in terms of what he's going through psychologically. But I guess to stay on M Night for just a second, it's pretty incredible that like he does the two movies before that, like Praying with Anger, and then you were mentioning the was it Wide Awake was the indie film that he did right
Yeah,
before this.
I didn't even know
Yeah,
about Praying with Anger.
yeah, exactly. I had to like look up the filmography to like see that one. I mean, it's not. I mean, both of those movies are not rated highly, and then all of a sudden he just has back to back like bangers in
Well, this was the first
1999.
like
Yeah,
distributed movie that he did.
fair. And honestly, props to him. The writing and the direction in this movie, I really, really like, and the story is interesting. And I don't know if it works if Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment don't work as a pair together, which is can be tough to find in like a an adult actor and a child actor working together. But I really really enjoyed the chemistry between those two and kind of how they played off each other. And it really worked for me, and that's the best part of the movie to me is. I mean, it's a lot of the movie is those two together, like walking and talking, or sitting around talking to each other. Being his like psychologist, it really works the chemistry between those two. So that's like hats off to like those three, because I think that's really where the movie works. But I mean, there's a lot of other good performances, like the mother's, like you mentioned, is a very good performance and stuff like that. But I mean, the movie does not work if Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment are not a good chemistry together.
Yeah, and strangely enough, this is the second movie that we're going to be talking about for both of those guys. We talked about Bruce Willis with Pulp Fiction, then we kind of briefly touched on Haley Joel Osment with Forrest Gump because he was in that as well. But you're right. If those two don't have chemistry, it does not work. And this is the role that whenever people say that Bruce Willis was just an action star, I kind of like to
Right.
point to this and Pulp Fiction as well, because he definitely has a lot of dramatic chops in that. But this is a very quiet performance, a very pained performance, and he's got to be able to carry that. It's kind of similar to the performance that he gives in Unbreakable in a lot of ways. And I know I'm talking about that a lot because that movie would come out the next year and kind of capitalize on a lot of the momentum that M. Night Shyamalan built with Bruce Willis with this movie. But they have tremendous chemistry. Bruce Willis gives a great performance. M. Night Shyamalan originally was not the biggest fan of Haley Joel Osment for this role because he said that he was a little bit too he said he was this really sweet, kind of beautiful blonde boy, and he didn't necessarily see the pain at first and kind of the struggle, but eventually it
Right.
kind of grew on him. And it was originally offered to someone named Liam Aiken. Don't know who that is. Michael Cera auditioned for the role.
That
Obviously,
would have been
a
interesting
much younger
casting.
Michael Cera, not the Michael
Yeah,
Cera we know right now. But I think that this casting was tremendous, and I don't think anyone would have done as good of a job as Haley Joel Osment did as this kid, because at first you have to buy the fact that Haley Joel Osment as Cole believes that no one can help him and that he doesn't want anything to do with this child psychologist played by Bruce Willis, because he's very apprehensive at first, and Bruce Willis is just coming off of a really bad situation where one of his former patients broke into his house and shot him and
yeah,
then killed himself in their bathroom. So
like
then
murder
he's walk
suicide. Yeah,
yeah.
or
So
like
then he's walking around.
attempted murder suicide. Yeah,
Yeah. So then
attempted
he's
murder
walking
suicide.
around and he's like, all right, well, I've next man up, I guess.
Yeah,
And that's Cole. So they're both kind of looking for answers in different ways. Uh, but
and like he's
also,
looking back at his notes and he's thinking like, I see a lot of similarities between Cole and like this other patient.
yeah, he's
Like,
kind of
yeah,
having
so
that whole arc of, if I feel like if I can help this boy, it'll be like being able to help the other one, which I wasn't able to do. And it's
right.
trying to right those wrongs, but also Cole is just in a world of, I mean, his mom is clearly going through a lot. She's always very stressed, trying to connect with this kid. The mom, played by Toni Collette, who is just the horror mother at this point. Between this and the performance she'd given Hereditary 19 years later, she's really good at this type of role. And
But it's a
strangely,
different role, right? Because like
it
I
is very
haven't
different. But it's strange that she was
fully seen
nominated for this
Hereditary.
one, but not that one.
Right, that's strange. Because to me, I don't know if I've seen Hereditary all the way through, but I've seen the scene that everyone talks about where she just like goes on that huge rampage at the dinner table and is
Yeah.
like, "How dare
I am
you?
your
How dare
mother.
you?" Yeah, I am your mother.
I
Like
don't
that
love the
scene
movie as much as
is
everyone else does, but
is
I love
great.
her performance as much as
Right.
everyone else does.
And so she was nominated for this performance, and like I really like this performance, but it just seems a little weird that she was nominated.
Yeah, I'm
It's not
I'm
like it's
I'm
a
with you
bad
on that.
performance. I really like it. It's just there wasn't anything better in 1999 than that performance. Um, I feel like she is given a lot to do, and I will say with M Night, the one thing I'll say about his movies sometimes is you do get like quiet characters, like you were talking about with Bruce Willis's character, and it's a lot of like using facial expressions or like looks in the eyes to like really sell scenes and stuff like that. And I think Bruce Willis and Colette do a great job of like selling it with their eyes and with their facial expressions. And then Haley Joel Osment is like the king of that in this movie, where like the looks he gives Bruce Willis, you're like, okay, I kind of buy that this kid's like tormented by death or by demons or whatever it is. Like this kid has some issues going on. Like you can tell it in his face. Like you can just see it in his face. So I really like that part of this movie where, like you said, it's a psychological thriller. And I was watching it with my girlfriend and I kept turning to her because she'd seen it before. I'd never seen it.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Nice.
so I turned to her sometimes and I was like, so it's like something about to happen. Like I actually want you to kind of spoil it for me because I'm kind of like on the edge of my seat. Like I don't I don't want what's about to happen. And then yeah, there was a lot of those moments in the movie where I was thinking I was sitting there like kind of like stressed out a little bit, like, oh my gosh, like I really hope this like doesn't happen here. And then like the payoff would happen and be like, okay, like that's really good writing, really good directing, and like the facial expressions are awesome. So yeah, I'd never seen it before, and this is to me, and we can get into grades soon, but this is a great performance by two actors that like I was saying earlier, if they don't mesh together in terms of their performances, it just doesn't work. And it absolutely works in this movie.
Before I get into some of my other thoughts about plot and that kind of thing, without getting into spoilers, just one word answer. Did you know about the twist going in?
I did not. Yeah,
Oh,
I did
okay.
not.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I cannot wait to talk about that later. I'll table that now. We will come back to that, but I cannot wait to get your thoughts and opinions on that. One of my complaints with the movie is I think that at the beginning, after the scene with the shooting, I think you do tend to get a little bit of that M. Night Shyamalan awkward dialogue that we've come to
Hmm.
know and hate over the
Yeah.
last 2.5 decades. And there's some of that a little bit more in the beginning than as we go on. And there are some scenes that just kind of linger a little bit too long for me, especially towards the end. I think I think
Yeah.
I think that the
I feel
end
you.
it ends in a good place, but it just kind of
It just kind of
it
ends. It's
just
like
kind of
really
keeps
abrupt.
going for a little bit and then it just kind of
Yeah.
cuts off.
Right.
And I thought that could have been done. Maybe that's an editing thing. I don't know. It just could have been done maybe just a little bit smoother. Maybe I'm in the wrong
So
about
that's
that.
interesting, and maybe you're right about the M Night like awkward dialogue writing style or just like awkward lingering, but I almost think like that was almost intentional because like he's trying to make the movie like have some awkward moments in it, but maybe not. I mean, maybe that's just the M Night thing, like you were saying. Maybe that's just something that comes with like his directing style and his writing style.
There's
But I do
some
agree with you that like the awkward moments do exist in the
the
movie.
dialogue. I'll say this: the dialogue that is written for our three main characters, Bruce Willis, Haley Joel Osment, Tony Collette, is really good. But it's
Yeah,
dialogue with side characters
it's
that I
the
think that he
other
really
dialogue.
struggled with in this one. And I don't even know if
Yeah.
really struggled.
Uh,
Maybe it's not
Are you
quite that
thinking
harsh, but it's not
like the teacher
the
scene? That's a weird
teacher.
one.
There's a scene at a jewelry store. There's a another dude that comes into the story, and it just felt like he had a really good
That one
handle.
felt like it was an intentional awkwardness, like he was
Yeah,
trying to be
no,
awkward.
I
Yeah.
get that, but it felt like his dialogue and the script was at like a peak level for the main characters, and then it was
Yeah.
at just fine for the
That's
others.
fair. That's a good point. Yeah.
So that was one,
Like a
and
like
then
a C minus level for the rest of the cast. Yeah.
there was a
Yeah.
scene at a funeral that just felt really convenient. It like it
Yeah.
wasn't bad necessarily. It was just like,
Just
wow,
weird.
that sure, why not?
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, like sure.
Like I
Okay, we'll
liked the
go ahead.
tone that it set up. It also it does feel kind of random, but I kind of appreciated that about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I did think
I,
this movie had a decent enough pace to it for a movie that is an hour 48. It moved pretty well, and it doesn't
yeah.
with a less talented writer, this could have been 215 and had 25
Right.
extra minutes of garbage.
Yeah, and I do want to commend him on that because I've been telling Lindsay like when we get out of certain movies, I'm like, oh, that movie should have been like 30 minutes long, and she's like, man, you're really on like a kick of like movies need to be longer, and I'm like, well, some do, like some need to like expand a little bit more. 30 minutes. This was like maybe he could have done an extra 5 minutes, or maybe he could have like cut out some like ending stuff that would have made like the ending a little tighter and stuff like that. But for the most part, this being an hour and 48 minutes, that's golden. Like he nailed the pacing of the movie. Like the pacing is really well done, and there's really no moments in the movie outside of a couple of awkward stretches where you go like, was that scene like unnecessary? Like there's a couple of unnecessary scenes, but for the most part, you're not like lingering in like scenes and like just wasted dialogue, wasted moments and stuff like that. I think there's just enough to kind of keep moving the plot forward. And like I was saying when I was watching this is my first time watching this. I was kind of on the edge of my seat a couple of times, like okay, like what's gonna happen next? Like, can we get to like the next part? Like, I really enjoyed that part of the movie.
Yeah, I saw this for the first time 10 years ago. I remember I got it at Walmart for like $3. And I was like, hey, it's On the IMDb top 250. Let me check it out. I'm
Yeah,
sure it's not
Bruce
that.
Willis.
I was like, I'm sure
Right?
it's not that good because it's an M Night Shyamalan movie, and the only M Night Shyamalan movie I'd seen at that point was The Last Airbender. So I was
Oh,
like, oh,
okay,
this is
yeah.
gonna. Maybe people were just stupid in 1999. It's like, no, M Night Shyamalan was just making better movies at a point. That's just what it was, and he, you know, went up and down throughout his career. And I'm sure we'll get back on the M Night Shyamalan.
He's
Uh,
a heat check shooter. He's a Jimmy Butler of directors. He's a real heat check.
I wouldn't say Jimmy Butler because Jimmy Butler is like a consistent All NBA player.
Okay, that's fair. I,
I
I
would
was more
say
saying like
I'd
he
say
really
he's
takes chances and takes shots and like it's a lot of heat check moments.
I'm
He's
gonna
like,
say he's Nick
let me just
Foles.
go
He's
for it.
either like playing
Okay,
at
yeah,
an MVP Pro Bowl level or he's out of the league.
yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. Yeah,
That's
I
what I'd
mean,
say.
yeah, I mean when he's directing it, it almost thinks like sometimes when he does stuff, he's just like, let's go for it. Like let's really try, and then it's like nowhere close to like
I'll
being
give
what it
him
should be.
props for no movie except for maybe The Last Airbender. No movie of his feels like well he's just doing what the corporate guys want him to do. It
Right, he
feels like
doesn't do any of
it
that.
is M Night Shyamalan and M Night Shyamalan on full send, but sometimes that's also a movie's biggest detriment. But I'd rather a movie suck to high heaven in the way that M Night Shyamalan makes bad movies than bad movies like Madam Web that just came out, where it's just like
Right. We
this
just
feels
plot around for 2
this
hours, yeah.
where it's just like this feels like there was no creativity behind it, and it was just executives saying, put this in, and oh, by the way, the end is going to deal with a Pepsi sign. You know, it's. Have you seen Madam Web?
I haven't seen it yet, but
Oh,
I can't
okay.
wait for this
Well,
movie.
you'll
No, you're good.
surprise.
No, you're good. Whatever, it's fine. I'm okay.
Let's go ahead and give grades.
Yeah, go ahead, you go first because I don't have mine up.
Okay. I'm gonna give this. It's an A for me, and it is an A with a 57.15%. So it's a decent
Nice.
A, but it is definitely and it is higher than the Green Mile. I had the Green Mile at an A minus 11.82. So this right now is it's in front of the Green Mile. I think it's something I could rewatch a lot more.
You said
It's pace
52, 52,
57.15.
57.15. Yeah, so Green Mile, so you like it better than the Green Mile, and do
Yes.
you think the pacing is like the reason why it's just like
I
you
think the
could this is a
pacing is
more
the reason
rewatchable
why.
movie?
I also think that, and I'm curious. Maybe you can rewatch it before the next M Night movie, whenever that is,
Mhm.
and just kind of see how it is after knowing what the twist is and watching it knowing the whole
That's
time,
fair.
because it is a
Yeah, that's
different
a really good point.
experience, and I'm not sure if it's a better one or a worse one. It was just kind of the same
Right.
to me. It didn't really it makes sense. And there's no point where I'm like, that's stupid. That doesn't make sense. But I'll talk
No,
about it a
yeah,
little
that
bit more in
completely makes
spoilers.
yeah, that
But I'm
completely
curious.
yeah. Yeah, so maybe I'm a little bit higher than you are. I actually have this as an A 87.8. So
Ooh,
I really like the twist at the end. I really like the pacing of the movie, and like I said, I think Haley Joel Osment and Bruce Willis. I think this is like exceptional, like facial expression work, expressing your emotions with quiet scenes and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this movie. Not quite as good as Forrest Gump. I have that as an A plus, but it's close to an A plus for me, and I really enjoyed this movie. Like I think it would be on most of my top 10 lists for most years. Like that's how good I think this movie is.
well, as we get further, maybe we'll just have to go forward with some 1999 stuff as the year goes on, and
Yeah,
see
and
where it
just make a
stacks
top
up.
10 list, like a
Yeah.
top 20 list.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, The Sixth Sense is definitely a contender for something like that, as far as I'm concerned. Haley Joel Osment did not win the Oscar. He lost to Michael Caine for The Cider House Rules. Can't tell you anything about that movie. I know nothing about it. And Tony Collette lost to Angelina Jolie in Girl Interrupted, which I have heard some about that movie, and I've heard it's not like a great movie. but she's
But the
fantastic in
performance
it.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's interesting that Bruce wasn't nominated. And I mean, he gets nominations later, and he's had them before this, I think.
he's
But
not. Has he? I don't really remember Bruce. Let me.
has he ever been nominated? I guess I'm like blanking on if he's been nominated before,
He
but
has never been
you
nominated
might be
for an
right.
Oscar.
That's crazy because, like, to me, this performance and his next performance in an M Night movie with Unbreakable, like, how did those not get nominated?
I think that if it was going to happen, it was going to happen for The Sixth Sense, and
Right.
it just didn't. So
Just didn't. But I mean, maybe people just think he's like an action star and like it just didn't work. But
yeah,
like at the end of the day, like I really like his dramatic moments, and I like him as an action star. Like he's actually one of my favorite like actors in terms of when I want to watch an action movie, I usually turn on a Bruce Willis movie.
we
So
will.
I'm very interested that he's never been nominated and was never nominated. I guess
At
so
some
that's
point,
just
we're
weird.
going to get down the Die Hard rabbit hole, and that's one of my favorite
I
action
mean,
movies. My favorite movies, period, of all time.
then they just kept making more, but it was like it's still Bruce Willis and Die
Yeah,
Hard, like it's still Die Hard. So I don't know,
I
but
haven't seen
I mean,
2
I'm
or
with you.
3, but
Yeah, I'm with
I
you.
liked
Same. I
4,
haven't seen him either.
but 5 was awful. 5,
Okay, yeah.
5 was just
Well, I mean, but
disaster.
once you get to the fifth installment of Die Hard, what is
Hey,
there to
Fast
do?
and Furious
Like,
made it work. Fast Five's the
yeah,
best
well,
one.
Mission Impossible makes it work, but I feel like there's more substance there with
Yeah,
Mission
Mission
Impossible.
Impossible's
But
best
maybe I'm
one
wrong
was
with that.
6. So
Right,
they
right.
found a.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the winner of the Best Picture Academy Award
Oh my god.
1999, American Beauty, directed by Sam Mendes, the director that gave us 1917 and Skyfall, which
Praise the Lord.
watch this movie and tell someone that, hey, yeah, this guy's going to go on to make one of the most gripping war movies of all time, as well as one of the top James Bond movies. Maybe the best James Bond movie.
Maybe the best. Yeah,
We'll get to
maybe the
that at a
best.
point too. Uh, won Best Picture. He won Best Director. Kevin Spacey won for Best Actor, his second Oscar win after The Usual Suspects in
Yep.
1995. Annette Bening was nominated for Best Actress, but she lost to Hilary Swank for Boys Don't Cry in a bit of an upset. Annette Bening was kind of the favorite. It was a close race, but Annette Bening was the favorite to win for American Beauty. I have not seen Boys Don't Cry, so I can't really judge that. But Annette Bening, no Oscar wins to this point. Hilary Swank has 2. So
Yeah, and isn't Allison Janney like pretty well? I mean, she's
Allison
really good
Janney
at.
won an Oscar for I, Tonya, but she's
Yeah,
in this movie and she is
yeah.
a very
Weird
small role.
character.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was Allison Janney until like the last scene she was in.
You were
This
like,
was
oh wait,
written by Alan Ball, starring Kevin Spacey, Annette Bening, Thora Birch, Allison Janney, Peter Gallagher, Mina Savari, Wes Bentley, and Chris Cooper. And it was released September 15th, 1999 is the date that it was released, but it kind of had an odd, it was released in 6 theaters to start off, and it wasn't really wide release until October 8th. And then it kind of faded. It made some money, but it faded out around Thanksgiving. And then once it got nominated for Oscars around Valentine's Day, it made its way back into the top 10 and stayed there until after Easter. So this movie had
that's
a
crazy.
very long shelf life, and it made $130 million domestically, 358 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. And I kind of wish that those movies would make big bank like that today.
Yeah. Okay, so in 1999, I was like 5 years old at that point.
Yep.
I could not imagine my dad going to see this movie and then like going to his place of work and being like, "Oh, by the way, did you check out that new movie American Beauty?" Like how did this movie have legs and like word of mouth? Like I have like what do you say to people when you watch this movie? You're like, "So have you checked that movie out cuz that movie's crazy." Like
That's
I
what
mean,
people did.
I
This
mean,
was
that's good for it though. I mean, right? Like you said, with the huge money, like good for it because that's an awesome return.
I'll kind of get into two cultural things with this movie before we talk about the plot right off the bat. First thing is this won Best Picture in 1999, and DreamWorks pushed the hell out of this movie to win Best
Yeah,
Picture because the year before, and this is kind of a preview as to something we're going to talk about on the next podcast. The year before, they expected to win with Saving Private Ryan for Best Picture, and then Shakespeare in Love and that no good son of a bitch Harvey Weinstein producing or promoting the hell
yeah,
out
I'm
of
with you.
Shakespeare in Love that came out and beat Saving Private Ryan because DreamWorks was kind of just expecting to win as they probably
They were
should
like,
have
"This is the
because
greatest war movie of all
yeah
time." They're
they
like,
should
"How
have
does this
won,
not win?"
but Harvey Weinstein was kissing the babies and shaking the right hands and doing all that stuff, which
And those hands had money. Yeah,
I
those hands
really
had money
wish
in
that
it.
the
Yeah,
Oscars weren't about things like that. I really wish it was just based on the merit of the performances or the movie. And
right.
sometimes it is. A lot of times it is. But this was one of those
Feels like
cases.
sometimes it's not.
And a lot of the people that
I
voted for Shakespeare in Love kind of said afterwards that they should have voted for Saving Private Ryan. So as a result, DreamWorks really ramped up the marketing push for this
they
to
were
make sure
like,
that that didn't happen
"Please."
again, and they did win. And this was kind of the
Right.
favorite from beginning to end to win Best Picture in 1999, which was already a fantastic year for movies, but also 1999 was a year that we see as one of the greatest movie years of all time. But very shortly after 1999, a lot of the movies that came out that year got a lot of pushback. And it was no fault of the movies that came out necessarily, but there was stuff like American Beauty and Fight Club and Office Space that were very like suburbia, consumerism, the workplace. Don't you just hate these things? Aren't these just like the death of the American family and the American household? Apparently filmmakers were very frustrated with just like modern, white picket fence life in America. And then 2 years later, when 9/11 happened and all of that stuff was going on, it kind of seemed like, really, that's what you were complaining about? And it didn't age very well at that
Yeah,
particular time. And so a lot of people, even just a couple years after American Beauty won Best Picture, were like, maybe it wasn't that good. Maybe it's not, it's overrated and it's not going
I
to
don't
age.
think it.
It's not going
Right.
to age well. But I just, I'm here to say that as someone who watched this movie about 8 years ago or so, and I didn't know any of that. I also had the benefit of watching it before Kevin Spacey. Just all the stuff came out about him, and all we know about
Yeah,
Kevin
yeah.
Spacey now. I love this movie, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And it's still in the
Mm.
IMDb top 250. It's still got a prominent enough place on that list, and it still does hold some cultural fascination, and I think that's for a reason.
So yeah, absolutely. So I've never seen it before. So again, I kind of got the treat of watching it for the first time. Um, knowing, I think I even texted you, like knowing what happens with Kevin Spacey and like who Kevin Spacey is. This performance is weird. Like it's weird. But I will say it's phenomenal. It is a phenomenal performance.
I did not know this. This was Sam Mendes' featured directorial debut. Way to come
That
out of
is
the
a
gate,
crazy debut.
guns guns
So
blazing. This movie's about Kevin Spacey, who plays a guy by the name of Lester
yeah,
Burnham, and he works at with some like entertainment industry, and he's an ad guy
yeah,
there.
he's an ad
Uh,
executive. Yeah,
and he's in the middle of this midlife crisis. His wife doesn't have any respect for him. His kid hates him. Um,
his
and
teenage daughter. Yes, his teenage
yeah,
daughter.
and he just starts kind of fantasizing about his daughter's best friend who's like also like 16, 17 years old, which
Right.
obviously there are a lot of problems with that. Uh, Annette Benning's got some stuff going on. And then there's a neighbor played by Wes Bentley, who is kind of into the daughter, start spending time with Kevin Spacey's character. And then there's like a militant dad played by Chris Cooper.
Ex-Marine. Yeah,
Yeah.
ex-Marine. Yeah.
And we'll get into more specifics, but
Yeah, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but oh my god, there's a lot of characters where you go, that's the character? You're like, what? You're like, what? You're like, that decision's kind of wild. Let's see where this goes. Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
start
mean,
off with
the
I know
plot
we
is
I know we hate him. I
go ahead.
understand.
Yeah.
I'm on
No, no,
board with
I'm
it
with you.
100%.
That's what I was
I'm
trying to
not
get at before
I'm
we
not
got into this.
supporting
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey whatsoever. But given that we're
Same.
talking about movies from the 80s, 90s, and so on, we're going to have to talk about some people that aren't necessarily the best, that have had things come out about them, and more or less kind of shower them with praise, because there might be awful people, but Kevin Spacey became a world famous actor for a reason, and his performances like this. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal in this movie, and it's
Yeah.
legitimately one of my favorite performances of the 90s. I think he
Yeah, I can't
strikes
even argue with that.
I think he strikes a perfect balance of being funny, being creepy, being relatable, being volatile, being I just think that this guy he he's fun to watch. You don't necessarily agree with everything that he's doing, but he's fun to watch.
Oh,
Uh
you definitely don't agree with everything he does. Yeah, yeah.
they write
But
him with a good sense of humor, but also at the same time, he has a character arc, and it's not exactly what you expect when you're first watching the movie, because you're watching it
yeah.
and you think it's just going to be all about one thing, but then it kind of evolves, and I like the way that everyone's character, except for a few that we'll get to, kind of has their peaks and valleys, and they're not just static.
Mhm.
But Kevin Spacey is the
Yeah.
engine that really makes this movie go.
Yeah, I mean, his performance. I mean, I'm not gonna say another actor couldn't do what he did. I do think there's maybe some people out there who could have done it, but his performance is just incredible, and it's just bordering on like I relate to this guy, but he like makes me want to throw up. Like, I don't know. And then the funny jokes in the movie and like the exchanges with his wife, like those are some of the best like comedic moments of the entire movie. Like the exchanges with his wife, and it just works. And there's so many performances in this movie that kind of make you cringe a little bit, which is what I was kind of getting at a little bit. But it works because the movie is weird. It is shock value, but it's like a good shock value.
I don't know if it's. I think when I get what you're saying. I think when people think
Yeah.
shock value, they think like the
Like,
Sixth
how can we
Sense,
do
like
something nasty
twists,
or something?
or they think
Yeah.
something like Saltburn, where it's just like, what the hell is this doing here? And this isn't necessarily like that.
Yeah.
Everything is very plot driven. Everything has strong dialogue, and I think that the actions that the characters take make sense. And
No, definitely.
like for example, I loved Wes Bentley in this movie. I thought his character was very interesting, and I think that his interactions with Kevin Spacey in particular, with Kevin Spacey and Chris Cooper in this movie, I thought were very strong. I thought that the relationship that he had with
Hmm.
his dad was, it's devastating to watch, but I did like the different how you could tell that he put on a different face for every person that he talked to. His interactions with Kevin Spacey sound very different than his interactions with Chris Cooper, which sound very different than his interactions with Thora Birch. And I thought that it showed a large range of Wes Bentley, and as this character Ricky, and I was always interested to learn more about him.
Right. And I mean, his character, I don't think this is a spoiler, like it's in the plot. Like his character likes filming people without them knowing, and it's a creepy thing. It's creepy, it's cringy, but it kind of like works. And what you're getting at with like the range of that character paired with Kevin Spacey's performance as Lester, paired with Thora Birch's performance as Jane, like there's so much range with each character and what they're allowed to do on screen and what they're allowed to kind of have as like character arcs. And I think that's where I'm like, yes, there to me, like there was shock value and like I can't believe like they made that decision, or like I can't believe like this was made, but none of them were like, oh my god, you made that decision just to like make the audience gas or just to make the audience go like, ew, I can't believe they did that. Like everything, like you said, has a purpose and there's a reason behind it, and there's so much range, and like the character arcs are just wonderful. And I think that's what makes the movie so interesting, because I was like 45 minutes into the movie, and I think I texted you like, wow, I'm 45 minutes into this movie and it doesn't feel like I've been watching this movie for 45 minutes. It feels like I've been watching it for like 15 or 10. Like there's so much going on and it just happens so fast, and it's not paced in like a bad way. It's not
No,
edited in a
I
bad way.
think
Everything works like beautifully.
it's a 2 hour, 2 minute movie, and I think it moves even quicker than The Sixth Sense,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. Some stuff I don't think it's necessarily a spoiler to get into some of these things. Annette Bening not having sex with Kevin Spacey, probably a good call, Annette. But yeah, I'm just
I mean,
saying.
Lester's character is weird. Like it's like
But
their
also,
relationship as wife and husband is like funny and awkward and like
but
just
most
weird.
most of the characters in this movie, you at least see. I get why you're frustrated. Annette Bening has this. She's a real estate agent, and she's always
Right.
losing out to this one other dude, and she's
The
just
king
so.
of real estate.
Yeah, the king of real estate, played by Peter Gallagher, and she's just so frustrated because she's doing all she can to sell these houses, and it's just not working. And she's frustrated because Kevin Spacey just lost his job, and in a really ballsy move, gets more severance than he was probably expecting, but then blows it all on a sports car because of course he is, because he's having a damn midlife crisis. So she's
He's like
frustrated with that.
his exchange at that moment when she's like, "Whose car is that?" He's like, "Well, it's my dream car, so I would have bought it." Like, of course it's mine. I'm like, it's just too good. But continue, keep going, keep going.
And so Annette Bening, it's not too late in the movie when this happens. She starts sleeping with the other real estate guy, so she's
Right.
having an affair. Meanwhile, Kevin Spacey is having conversations with Angela, his daughter's friend, and it just
Who's
like
underage, not legal.
underage. But
Yeah.
Angela's also like talking a big game to her dad, or her
Right.
to Jane about like, I want to fuck your dad, and I would, I want to ride your dad, and I've been with all these different guys, which
I, I'm
makes
a,
what
I'm
happens at the
inspiring.
end of the movie like not
Right.
necessarily shocking, but I think it was the right way to go about that plot, and we'll get to it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that was written well, but also at the same time, you're meant to see the ups and downs of like, this person's got this going on, and so they do that. It's not just they do this, they do that, they do this. Everything
Right.
is
Right.
everything is uh something happens and they react to it, and it's just a constant state of reaction, which is how
It's like Newton's law.
which is how we know we have a
Right.
great
Yeah.
script.
It's amazing. It's like amazing work of like Newton's law. It's like for every action there's an opposite but equal reaction. Like no matter what like his wife does, like his wife Carolyn, like whatever she does, Lester just like reacts to it. He's like, "Oh, okay, you want to do that? Okay, I'll go do this." Like, "Okay, you want to do that? I'll do this." And it's the same thing with like Wes Bentley, like with Ricky Fitt's character. Like, "Oh, okay, my dad's gonna do this to me. Okay, I'm gonna do this to, like, I'm gonna go and do this in like response to what my dad did." Um, yeah, it's just great. It's just an awesome movie, and it works. Like, I don't know if it should work, but it does. And like that's what is incredible about it. And like you said, like a directorial debut, like who in their right mind as a director, as a debut is like,
Let's
screw
come
it.
out
I'm gonna,
with this.
yeah, let's do this. Like whatever. Like I don't care. Like let's put it all on the table. And man, I think you messaged. I want to give you props. 'Cause I think you texted me. I wish more because I said something like, "I can't believe this movie was made," or like, "I can't believe they made this movie in 1999." And you said something that struck me. You were like, "I wish more movies were like given this a like given a chance like this. Like I wish more movies were made that had like this like feel of, yeah, let's go for it. Like let's like we were talking about with M Night. Let's punch this through the roof. Like let's end it right now.
The
Like let's
closest thing I can think,
full send."
and obviously they have very different tones, is something like Poor Things right now, which is doing well, but it's not doing $130 million well. It's not
Yeah.
this big giant cultural
And
thing.
130 million in 1999 too. We got to keep that in mind.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was a loaded marketplace at the time, and again, it went in, went out, and then came back and made
Like
even more money.
word of mouth had to be like insane where people were just like, "This movie is incredible, you have to go see it."
The hype
And
of
people were
this
like,
movie
"Yeah."
at the time was absolutely fantastic. Again, it was the, wire to wire best picture winner, Kevin Spacey wire to wire best actor, and Annette Bening was kind of expected to win best actress, but Hilary Swank pulled the upset. And then between the stuff with 9/11 that I talked about and just, changing culture, as well as the the stuff with Kevin Spacey. And I understand people not wanting to watch Kevin Spacey movies after what
Oh, it's
happened,
valid. I totally get it. Yeah, it's
but at the
valid.
same time, I don't think that makes the quality of the movie any worse.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good way of looking at it. Like separating the actor from the performance. Like, yeah, you don't like the actor, but the performance was awesome.
I
Like,
think
I like House of Cards. Like, I think House of Cards is awesome, and it's awesome because of Kevin Spacey, to be honest. So yeah,
I don't
I'm
know if you've seen the movie, so I'm not gonna spoil it. But
okay.
there's
Yeah.
a movie that Kevin Spacey's in for only like the last 25 minutes, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And he's so good at the end of that movie that it's stupid. And
It's like one of those performances. It's like this is incredible.
he just
This
comes
is
out of
the
nowhere, and I
best.
didn't even know he was in the movie. And a
Right.
lot of people listening to this will know what I'm talking about. And we will talk about it at some point this year. But the fact that he is a disgusting human being does not make me like that movie or any other movie less. I think the way that I tend to do it with separating the art from the artist, and I think it's just a lot easier if we all just kind of accept that most of us do this. I'll separate the art from the artist when the art is good, but when it's bad, it makes the everything twice as bad.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a good way of looking at it. Like
Because it's like if you're a
if
bad
this
person and you're
movie,
making bad art, then you're just
right?
wasting my time and you're a piece of shit.
I'm with you. And look, it's totally valid. Like if people want to feel the way they feel about Spacey and like not watch his movies, I completely
There's
get that.
plenty of other
But
great movies out there. Watch those.
yeah, definitely. But if you choose to turn on this movie, like just know that Spacey is about to rock the entire like screen time. He is just a rock star in
It's an
this movie.
incredible
He is
performance.
so great. I mean, it's honestly one of the like best like I don't even put this a good way because I don't know how to put this, but it's like one of the best like character performances where you're like, I don't really like that character, but I like them enough where I'm like,
I like watching it.
wow. Right, yeah,
I can
I
watch
like
it all day
watching
long.
what's going on. Yeah, but I don't like the decisions you make, but I like you as a character in terms of, like, just watching you on screen and how you interact. Yeah, I mean, this movie's awesome.
I'm currently
So you got a
keeping
grade?
I'm currently keeping a ranking of any Oscar winner as far as
Yeah,
picture, director, actor, actress, supporting actress. And I'm kind of keeping a ranking of the ones that we talk about. And so right
interesting.
now, this
Okay,
is the third best actor performance that we've talked about. And right now, I've got them ranked: Kevin Spacey for American Beauty, Tom Hanks for Forrest Gump, Gene Hackman for The French Connection. And it's close
okay,
between
yeah.
Spacey and Hanks, except for the fact that I'm not sure it really is, because I just
Oh, I
love.
don't think it is, if I'm being honest with you.
I think that
And I love Tom Hanks in Forrest
I
Gump. Like,
do
it
think
might be his best
I think
performance.
that Spacey's performance is much better than Hanks, but I also know that I want to come back and watch Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump a lot more. And
That's
so
a good
there
point.
might be a little bit of that playing into it as well, but I still have Spacey above Hanks because I just think that he just kills
How
it.
rewatchable is this movie? I don't know if it's that rewatchable.
I don't really think that it is. I watched it for the first
Right.
time in March of 2016. Autism helps you remember things. So it's been about 8 years since I've seen it, and I've never really felt the urge to rewatch it again. But
And then
this
you
is,
rewatched it and you were like, wow, Kevin
yeah, no,
Spacey
this
again?
is this. It's a phenomenal movie and a phenomenal performance. Only really complaint that I have with it necessarily is there are a couple of characters that are a little bit more static. Thora Birch as
Mm.
Jane, for example, is just kind of the rebellious daughter, and I don't really think that they do anything different with that character than anything
I
we've ever
think they give
seen.
opportunities to, like, arc as a character, and I do think there's a range to it, but at the hardcore, like, center of who she is, she's just a rebellious teen. Like, it's just, yeah, it's kind of is what it is.
For me, it's an A, 83.45%, which is about what I had expected this movie to
A,
be. An A, yes. I don't have this
okay.
at an A plus. I think a lot of that is just, I don't
It's
know,
weird.
maybe the middle, maybe some stuff with
Yeah.
Wes Bentley and Thora Birch. I thought that their relationship wasn't necessarily the most believable. I
No, it's
just
not believable,
I
but
saw
it's kind of like,
I saw his
wow, like,
interactions
what are we
with
doing
everyone
here?
else, and I just thought, I don't see what you see in her. I get what she sees in you. I don't get what your angle is here. I don't get why you're suddenly so gung ho for this girl. It
This
didn't really make
random
sense
girl,
to me.
yeah. So I guess I'm way higher than you on this, because
Go ahead, let's hear it.
to me, this movie is just it's just different. It's a different viewing experience from really anything else I've really ever seen. I'm giving this an A plus, 50.2.
Wow. Okay, so an
I
enthusiastic A plus.
Yeah, this is some great stuff, and it really stems from Kevin Spacey. Like, the rest of the movie is really good, but Kevin Spacey's character and his interactions and, like, the plot twist at the end and all this stuff, which isn't really a plot twist. Like, I mean, we can get into that later with spoilers, but at the end of the day, this movie is just phenomenal in terms of what it does with Kevin Spacey's character and his performance, and how it transforms that into this, like, outlandish movie that you can't, like, stop watching. And I don't know when I'm gonna rewatch this movie. I mean, I might rewatch it like a month from now.
Oh wow.
I don't know. I don't know when. And, like, that's why I kind of asked. I was like, is this really rewatchable? Because, like, once you know what happens at the end, I feel like the impact is kind of. But if you're just watching it for, like, Kevin Spacey's performance, then, like, I mean, I don't know. I could probably watch it, like, next week. So I don't know. We'll see. I did tell my dad that we were reviewing this movie. He was like, oh, you're doing the movie podcast with Mitchell. Like, what movies are you guys doing? And I told him one of them was American Beauty, and he's like, oh, American Beauty. He was like, I remember seeing that in theaters, and I was like, wow. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, yeah, that's a very, very, like, it's just a weird movie to talk to your dad about. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, Dad, you see that weird movie, American Beauty? Like,
Please tell
yeah,
me you
it's
weren't
just
relating to Lester too much.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was just, oh my god, it's just,
By the way,
I love this movie. I love it.
before we get into spoilers, if you want to kind of keep track of how we feel about these movies stacked up against one another, you can find both of us on Letterboxd. Brandon is at capital B capital T E W, and his list movies at random is going to have the ranked movies that we talked about. I'm at Mitchell Lee with three L's on Letterboxd, and mine is going to be called PPA reviews. But I also have lists for the different years, and I work ahead a little bit. Brandon likes to keep it really fresh in his mind.
Yeah.
I like to kind of work ahead just a little bit. Uh, so you can see Brandon has American Beauty above Forrest Gump, which I do not. But I think that we
I'm telling you, Mitchell, this movie is different. It is
so
different.
unlike 1994, where we both stood up in unison and said Shawshank Redemption should have beaten Forrest Gump, and that should have been the winner.
Right.
We can both stand up in unison again because we do share very similar views. Although you're much higher on this movie than I am, we can both stand up and say, at least, hey, maybe the cider house rules or the insider blows our socks off, but we can say that at least against these two other movies, the Academy got it right.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of asked about Bruce Willis and nominations, because I almost think like Oscar nominations over wins is like as impressive. Like if you're nominated, like I know there's a lot of nominees like every year, but if you're getting nominated for stuff, that means you're doing like good work for the most part. And so yeah, I will see with the Insider and House and Cider House rules, but this movie clears those other two by a lot. Like it's just a great movie. It's an awesome movie.
All right, let's go ahead and get into spoilers. So you've been warned. Spoiler talk for let's just stay on American Beauty while we're here. Uh,
Okay, so where do you want to start? Because like,
I kind of want to
there's a
start.
lot.
I
There's
kind
a
of want to
lot.
start with Chris Cooper's character, and the big thing with him is that he's concerned
Yeah.
that his son is gay, and he sees the filming that he's doing, and again, this guy doesn't really film
And he
for any
only saw one.
particular.
He only saw one video.
He doesn't really film for
That's
any
all.
particular reason. He just films what's going on around him. And
Right.
so he films Lester shirtless in the garage, just lifting
Oh, not
weights.
shirtless. Not shirtless.
Was he not
He was.
shirtless? Oh no, he was
He was
shirtless. He
full
was shirtless. Oh, was he
in
naked?
the scene. Yeah, he was naked. Oh,
Oh,
he was fully naked. Yeah.
I didn't remember that. But so
Yeah.
he's got his
In the scene, he's
suspicions
shirtless. In the scene, you can only see from waist up, but he's fully naked in the scene.
because Lester is getting to the point where, for good reasons or not, he's getting into much better shape. He's running, he's lifting weights. Yeah, he's doing it because he wants to have sex with a minor, but that's not a great reason to get in shape. But
It's
Kevin,
a terrible reason, but yeah.
one of the worst reasons you can have. But Kevin Spacey is kind of his character's feeling himself. Lester's feeling good, and that's just what Chris Cooper sees. So he's like, "All right, I'm throwing you out of the house. You're gone. I'm not gonna have someone gay living in my house." And so he just kind of goes up to Jane and is like, "Hey, if I needed you to leave tonight, would you do that with me? Would you come with me?" Which just seemed to me like a leap and a half for his character
One,
to make.
yeah,
It totally
one of the biggest
Jane's
outlandish
dumbass doing
things.
it.
Right, right. So one of the most outlandish things for me is like how much of a drug dealer he is. He has like 40,000, 80,000 stashed away.
Yeah, that seemed like, wow. I deal drugs. No, I'm just kidding. But
After his parents busted him, sent him to military school, and then like sent him to like the like a mental institution for like drug, like a rehab for like drug abuse.
yeah,
Like he's still dealing drugs and has like $80,000 just stashed away
well,
like that.
clearly with the amount that he was doing, yeah, he probably needs to be on something because he's been dealing eighty
Yeah,
thousand
fair.
dollars worth of drugs before you turn 18. That might be a problem. But
No, fair. Yeah, no, it is. But it's just that to me seemed like kind of outlandish. But then I was like, maybe his parents are like that clueless. Like they just don't know. And to be honest, and you mentioned Allison Janney. Her character, I feel like she has like Alzheimer's or something is going on with her character where she's not all there mentally, and so the dad is just kind of doing it by himself, but not really. It's like one of those like weird like they don't really explain it in the movie, and I don't think it's supposed. I don't think there's. It's meant to be explained, I guess, is the point. And really, what you see is Chris Cooper and Wes Bentley. Those two characters with Ricky Fitz and Connor Fitz, like they're clashing, is like what you really see out of that family. And
But
yeah, to me
while
that was the most outlandish part. But yeah, go
but
ahead,
while
because
this
the
is all
ending is wild.
happening,
The ending is
Annette
wild.
Benning's character, Carolyn Burnham, is driving home and she's listening to like these like self-help or like pump up tapes. And she's like, yes, I
You
refuse to
will
be.
control your life.
Yeah, I want control over my life. I refuse to be a victim. And she's got a damn handgun, and she's like, I'm just gonna shoot my husband. I'm gonna do it. And at the same
After
time,
her husband caught her because he quit his job, his corporate job, got like the huge,
started working at
severance
like a
package,
fast food
started
joint
working
and
at Mr. Smiley.
caught his wife cheating in the drive-through parking lot. Which, by the way, that's on you. That
Oh yeah, 100% on you.
horrible, horrible,
But
horrible,
also like when
hilarious.
he hands them the food, he's like, "Do you want some sauce with that Smiley burger?" Like I can't take this serious at
The
all. Like this
delivery
is
again. I Kevin Spacey was brilliant in this movie. But while all this is happening, Frank is gonna, Chris Cooper's character is gonna not necessarily confront Kevin
right.
Spacey, but just talk to him at first. And then you get the I didn't see it coming, but I should have. He doesn't want his son to be gay because he is a repressed homosexual himself, and he starts to
If we're reading
kiss.
between the lines, yes, that's what it is.
Yes,
Yes.
but Lester is also like, I could understand why someone would get those vibes from him, because he's just kind of like sweaty and shirtless, and he's just like the most understanding dude ever. At least when he's talking to
Well, and to be fair, he starts running with like Jim and Jim,
yeah, he
who
starts
are
running
the
with this
gay
other
couple
gay
next
couple.
door.
So
Yeah,
Frank is
so
thinking that this dude is gay and he's having sex with my son, but he starts to kiss him, and Frank is like, that's not really what was going on here. Now he lets him down really gentle. He was not, like
he's like, "Whoa, those
angry
not the
about
vibes
it.
I'm getting off."
No, like
Sorry,
it
yeah.
was it was like well done, but that was not exactly
So
the
before we get
vibe.
to the big end, yeah, before we get to the big end, the scene where he thinks they're having the that where he thinks Lester's character and Ricky's character are having sex together, that scene is so well shot because all they're doing is smoking pot, but it looks like they're doing like sexual
Yeah,
things in the shot because from Frank's point of view, all he can see is like these little parts, and he's like, well, that looks weird.
yeah,
Like, what
not
are they
great.
doing over there? Like, yeah. So, that was a really well shot scene, and it was kind of funny. And then, yeah, well, I guess we can get to the end because the ending is what
Well,
is
yeah.
absolutely
Next up, Lester's like, "Well, I'm not
it.
trying to have sex with a man. I'm trying to have sex with this nice young underage girl
God
right here."
bless.
And
That's just crazy
so
to me.
Angela's like, let's go on and let's do this. And then as they kind of start to get going, she's like, "Hey, I'm a virgin," which was kind of like, yeah, I any
I
teenager
mean,
that talks a big game like
I
that,
caught that,
yeah.
but yeah.
I wish I had known that in high school. That like everyone
She's
that
an
was talking,
aspiring model. Yeah,
yeah,
she's like an aspiring model too. So she's like, "Oh, I've done things to like get ahead in my modeling career," and it's
yeah,
like, have you really? Like,
yeah.
no. But
It,
yeah,
it
go
was
ahead.
it was
Yeah,
kind of I don't want to say obvious, but that was something that I wasn't too surprised by. And then Lester's just like, I'm not taking that from you. I can't. I'm done.
the first like good decision he made in like five straight decisions, he
No, I'm
finally made the
he's
right decision.
because he handles the whole thing with Frank really well. And then I mean,
Okay, two straight.
you could
Yeah, two
handle
straight.
a situation of trying to have sex
I
with
guess
an underage
three,
girl better
three.
by not being in that situation to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. Not
But
putting yourself
given
there.
what happened, good job not moving forward, I guess. I sure, but
What it really comes down to
don't
is
put yourself in
his
those situations,
character.
kids, or
Yeah,
more
don't.
adults.
That's the like obvious statement. But his character up until a certain point, and I think it's really the drive-through window at Mr. Smiley's. He just starts making like pretty good decisions where he's like he basically tells Frank's
He's
character
feeling some
he's like
confidence.
he's like my wife is like sleeping around with another man and I don't care.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
pretty
Frank's like
much
what? And he's like I don't.
it's a character arc because at the beginning of this
Yeah,
movie, if she had said that, he would have been like, "Sweet, awesome, I'm going deeper now." That's not his
right.
reaction in this one, and then he's comforting with her. She leaves, and then Frank shoots Lester in the back of the head.
Which did you when you first saw this? Did you think it was Frank? I thought it was his wife. Like I kind of thought it was her.
I
And
didn't
I think
think it was
you're
her
led to
at
believe
first.
it's her for most of them. Like the way they're shooting the scenes together and editing it,
I thought
it's
it
to make you
was
believe that it's her. Yeah,
I thought it
but
was Jane for some reason because I remember that Jane
Or
and
Ricky did
Ricky
it. Yeah,
had a conversation about like, would you kill my dad? And
that's how
Jane,
they start the movie.
yeah. And so I thought that maybe that's why maybe Jane was the one that did it. But
Which is such a bold directorial decision, right? Like they start the movie by going like, "Man, my dad's such a tool. Like he just wants to sleep with my like high school friends. Like I and then Ricky's character, her boyfriend, is like, "Well, do you want me to kill him?" And she like stops and looks at the camera like, "Yes, I
and
do." And it's like,
does it start with him kind of talking about his death? Doesn't that come up
yeah,
at the
and
beginning?
that's the other thing is at the very beginning of the movie, there's like a voiceover where it's like, "Hi, my name's Lester Burnham, and this is my suburbia life, and I will be dead in less than a year." And you're like, okay, so his character dies, and you're like, so Ricky has to kill him. Like that's what you're thinking when you first watch the movie. You're like, so Ricky's character is going to kill Lester, and so yeah, I was kind of shocked that it was Frank. Like to be honest with you, but then it kind of makes sense. Like when you start like peeling back the layers of the onion, I guess. If we're Shrek here, we're peeling back the layers of the onion. It feels like it makes sense that it's Frank, but
And then it kind of ends
man,
with that Lester voiceover as well, which it isn't in it's
like
only
he
in the
was almost
very
at
beginning
peace
and the
with it.
very end.
Yeah, yeah, he was like at peace with it. He was like, oh well, I was meant to die, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was like okay, but I, it's also weird because I think if you really look at it, I think Annette Bening's character with like the wife Carolyn, I think she was going to kill him.
Well,
I don't think that's made up.
I think
Yeah, like
that
she was
she was going to go in the house
with the gun.
with that intention, but I don't think she would have done it.
Right. Because then she gets in the house, she sees his head blown off, and she's like, or his head blown, and she's like, oh crap, I have this like gun and people are gonna think it was me. She like has to hide it like in the laundry basket or
She
something,
also
which
seems like sad about him dying.
right, yeah. She's like torn up about it.
Yeah,
And
so
to
that's
be
why I didn't
fair,
think that she was going to do it.
right, that's a good point. That's no, I mean that's a good point. And the way that that scene is shot is it works. Like it just works. Like Sam Mendes does a really good job directing it, and it just works. It's one of those things where like you see the gun in the frame, and then the trigger gets pulled, and then you see the blood splatter on the wall, and yeah, it just works as an ending scene. And to me, it was like one of the best endings I've seen in a while in terms of like how that movie wrapped up. But some of the decisions to get there were like kind of insane. Yeah, I mean, is there anything else in the movie? I mean, Ricky's character is weird, as we were talking about. Like you said, like he loves filming stuff around him, but like he also is like a creep. Like he also is a creep. So I don't know. Is there anything else you want to really touch on? I mean, outside of Ricky's character, I don't really got much.
I think it's
'Cause
time
his
for the
character
Sixth
is
Sense.
wild. Yeah. So do you just want to go with the plot twist? Because
I
I
think
feel
that the
like it's
best
right.
way to talk about this movie is to just go ahead and dive right into that specific detail.
Okay.
So Bruce Willis was dead the whole time, which was something that
Yeah.
neither you nor I knew going into our first watch of the movie, because I thought the big twist was that Haley Joel Osment saw dead people. I thought that was the twist of the movie going in. And then once he says that like 30 minutes in, I'm like, wait, then what's the twist? And then that happened, and I'm like,
Yeah, you
oh,
were like,
oh.
so yeah.
So what'd you think
So
about that?
he that scene happens and like I've seen that like you see that scene like posted on Twitter where people just post that one like line where it's like I see dead people.
Yeah. It's very
And yeah,
quotable
so like
back in the
you'd
early
seen it before.
2000s.
Right, you've seen it before. But it's just like I never seen it in context. So I'm watching the movie and I have the same reaction as you. I'm like, where's the twist? Like what's gonna happen? Like where's the twist? And then as we started getting like farther and farther into the movie, I was like, that's not going to be the twist. Like, no, like that can't be the twist. And I was like, and then it finally happened, and I was like, oh wow, like that's really well executed. Like that is, I mean, it works. It's believable too. Like if you think about it, the way their interactions go, I don't think anyone else knew Bruce Willis's character was there, and I think that's like the point is like only Haley Joel Osment's character, only Cole can see him. So Malcolm is just walking around and Cole is like having these conversations with him. And then at the very end, Malcolm's character is like, well, now that I've helped Cole, I can now move on. Like I can now move like
Yeah.
on to the next life. And then it cuts back to the opening like part of the movie where he's lying on the bed like bleeding out and you're like wow like he really does like die like but you go through the whole movie thinking like oh he survived and like he's living with like guilt of like not helping that one patient out and then it turns out that from the afterlife he somehow helped this kid named Cole and like that's a pretty incredible like twist to me. So I mean how did you feel about it when you first saw it or like even on the
I
rewatch like how do you
I was stunned when I first watched it because I didn't see it coming and it made total sense to me while I was watching it. But
right
this was the again,
exactly
this was another case of the first time. I haven't seen this movie in 10 years. I just haven't really rewatched it. So I watched this knowing the whole time, and watching it that way, it's a different experience, but also I'm like, how did I not see that coming?
Right,
Because it is
exactly, that's
very
how I
like
felt.
even to the point where that scene, I see dead people, they're walking around, they don't know that they're dead, and it's like the camera's pushing in on Bruce Willis, and it's like,
M. Night
how do
left
we
these
not know?
breadcrumbs. He left breadcrumbs for, like, people
Exactly,
to
yeah, and I
figure
think
it
that
out.
this, as far as M. Night Shyamalan twists go, this is the best one for a reason, because
Yeah, yeah,
you go
absolutely.
back and you rewatch it, and it's like, no, this all adds up, because a lot of twists, it's just like, you pulled that out of your ass, there's no way. This is not one of those. This is one where it's
Right.
like, hey, it was laid out for you, and you could have figured this out before the characters did, but you didn't because the plot was so interesting that you weren't really thinking about all that.
You're kinda rooting for Malcolm's character, you're like, yeah, like, his marriage is falling apart and,
But
like
he also feels like
but he's trying to help Cole.
he also feels like he has to do this to right some wrongs of his past, and he does. I mean, that whole thing with the funeral, they go to this little girl's funeral that Cole sees in his little like red tent area, which is just
That
terrifying.
scene
Just
yeah,
just
that
just
scene is
terrifying. I did not expect that. That really took the piss out of me the first time I watched it
when
and the second time I watched it.
when his character Cole hands the dad the video, I'm like,
Well,
"What's
I
this?" I'm like,
know
"This
what
could
that
be
was going
anything."
to be, but it also felt very
Yeah.
convenient, but it did have like a, "Oh, fuck," like, because it's about the
No, that's what
guy's
I was gonna say.
daughter,
It's like a shock thing. It's
and
like,
then you
"Oh."
find out that, her mother's been, like, poisoning her food?
Right, poisoning
At
her so
first,
she
she's
could,
putting
like,
on this, like,
continue to stay
stupid-ass
sick.
play that's actually kinda funny, like, "If you dance with me, I'll make you a deal. If you dance with me and you don't like how I'm dancing, you can kick me." And so it's really funny. So then she knows that her mom's coming, so she puts that stuff down and she goes to bed, but she doesn't stop filming. And her mom's preparing her
Do you think
food.
she knew?
Yeah,
Do you think she like knew? Yeah,
I don't
that's the sense I get.
I don't know. It just
I think the little girl knew.
it seemed kind of convenient to me.
Oh, that the camera was there.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was just like, okay, sure, why not? It had a good ambiance to it, and
I mean,
it fit the
it's
tone of the movie.
plausible and it's believable, but it's also like, wow, that mom is like really evil.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
there are some evil people out there.
Yeah.
But man, just the scenes where they like show the dead people that Cole sees, like some of them, you're just like, wow, like that's a little like icky. Like of course they're dead people, obviously,
The
so
one
it's
that
gonna make you feel
comes
that
in
way.
and is, like,
But
rummaging around the house, and has, like,
yep,
cuts on her arms and stuff, that was it's
the
some
boy
disturbing
like
imagery.
his head like is
Yeah.
chopped off. Yeah, like the back of his head is missing. And it's like, and then the scene to me that is the most awkward, but it kind of works because like once you figure out that like Cole's character is seeing what he's seeing, the scene with the teacher where the teacher's like, "So does anyone know what this building used to be?" And Cole was like, "Well, it's a place where they used to hang people." And the
I
teacher's like, "Where did you hear that?" And he's like, "I
I liked that.
would like he didn't know." Yeah, I did too. I really like that scene, and I really like how the teacher like interacts with him. Like it's awkward, but I think it works. And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of those decisions in this movie for M Night where I can vibe with it, and I can get down with like where he's going with it. And yeah, to me, that's the best part of the movies. Is I mean, the movie is just like the interaction with Bruce Willis's character and the plot twist at the end. Like you said, it's the best plot twist of him for a reason. Like it's that good.
I also think that the scene in the car with Cole and his mom,
Mm,
with Tony Collette, where he's finally saying, "Hey, mom, I'm going to tell you my secret. I'm going to let you in on this." And at first, she doesn't believe him because obviously she doesn't believe him. But then he starts talking about clearly she has been broken up this whole time about the loss of her mom. And so
mm-hmm.
he's talking about all the things that his grandma would have wanted to say, and why she's been like moving this bumblebee pendant in the house. Uh, because earlier in the movie, he's like, I didn't move it, but he doesn't want to tell her that she has been moving it.
Right, because he's seen his grandma move it around. Yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
yeah. And so they bond over that, and like I did not expect to almost get a teary eye moment in this, but I came close.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that that was a really well done moment, and again, I thought that Haley Joel Osment and Tony Collette had good chemistry. Haley Joel Osment really just brought his A game on this. This was a
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well,
It's one of the best child performances of all time for a reason.
absolutely. And I think Cole Sear and Lynn Sear together, that scene in particular, like that probably won her the nomination.
I think,
And
yeah, I think that was
yeah.
the thing that got her the nomination.
And did Haley Joel Osment get nominated? Because there's no way.
He got nominated. Yeah,
Didn't okay, thank God.
he got
Because
nominated.
there's just no way.
He was 11 when this movie came out, 10 when they filmed it. But yeah, he was nominated. Wasn't really expected to win. It was kind of a three-horse race
Right.
between Michael Caine, Michael Clark Duncan for The Green Mile, and Tom Cruise for Magnolia.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there
But
was
still, to
two
be
lost
nominated
cats and
in
Mr. Ripley, but to be nominated at age 11 and to give such a memorable performance that is, we're watching this movie 25 years later and still heaping praise on this guy for the work that he did when he was 11 years old. It's a performance that's lived on.
yeah, and and again, like just the stares and the way the eyes move and the quiet moments are like the softer parts in the movie, like those just work. And yeah, and it's a hats off to Haley Joel Osment because he really steals the like movie, like in terms of his performance is just awesome. So yeah, I man, this is a great duo of movies
I'm
to
telling you,
kind
I
of
pair
review.
stuff for a reason, Brandon. I'm no
Yeah,
more of this Oscar winner and then Marlon Wayans crap. There's gonna be
Fair enough.
purpose in
I mean,
pairings.
every now and then I like those. Maybe like once in a while, like a nice little random one. But no, I'm with you. This is with a purpose. Everything we do is with a purpose, Mitchell. Is with a purpose. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah,
All right,
this
well,
is
let's
awesome.
go ahead and preview the next three. The next one coming up, it's gonna be our last like romance thing for February. We talked about how death can overcome love in the last one, and the next time we're going to talk about two romantic movies that have been insanely popular for different reasons. The Notebook,
Yeah. Oh
Nicholas
man.
Sparks, Rachel McAdams, Ryan Gosling, and we're also going to pair that with Shakespeare in Love, which is a romantic movie that took the box office by storm in 1998 and won Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan. We kind of talked about it
Yeah.
earlier, and we will talk about it more on our next podcast. Then after that, we're going to start off with a Tarantino-a-thon. We're going to get into
Mm-hmm. The
Reservoir
Tarantino verse. Yeah.
Reservoir Dogs and Django Unchained. And
Oh man, what a
then,
pairing.
depending on when that happens, Brandon, it's either going to be the February recap, which will include Dune Part 2, because we are technically seeing that on the last day of February. So I'm counting it. But it's also going to include stuff like Argyle and Madam Web and One Love and Lisa Frankenstein and Drive Away Dolls. But
You seen Lisa Frank? You seen Lisa Frankenstein?
no, but you have. I
Oh,
want
okay.
I want to
Okay.
hear about
Fair.
it from you because I wanted to see
Okay.
it, but I just haven't. But if we can't get to that in time, our next random reviews, Brandon, we're going to be 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Darker. But the only reason that was going to happen was because it was going to be in the month of February. Might not make the month of February, so I think I'm going to table that
Push it.
for next February, and instead
Push it.
it's going to be a Matthew Vaughn-a-thon with the Argyle director, and we're going to talk about his first two movies, Layer Cake and Stardust. Layer Cake being a movie that a lot of people say got Daniel Craig the James Bond role. So we will talk about that
Love that.
late February, early
Matthew
March.
Vaughn is an interesting director. Interesting director. We'll
He's
get into it.
fallen off, but in order to fall off, you have to have been on. A lot of people think, oh, Matthew Vaughn, you're going to talk about Kick-Ass, you're going to talk about Kingsman. We'll get there at a point, but let's talk about the stuff before he got the big franchises like X-Men and Kingsman
Mm-hmm.
and Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about those either late February or early March. But that's going to put a bow on this show. 1999, American Beauty reigns supreme once again. Brandon, first of all, glad that you loved these movies and glad that you finally got to experience
Yeah.
these two fantastic films that I've loved for years. So congratulations on getting your 1999 on in a successful way.
Well done. Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. Let's continue this.
All right. So for Brandon Tew, I'm Mitchell Lee. Thanks for listening to Press Play Action here on Jersey Nerds Productions. Talk to you soon.